this is Keith Whitley.
Yeah, this is
one of my big heroes in music. And I get down there and he said, Ken, you're one of the greatest singers I've ever heard in my life. Don't ever give up. One day you're going to be a star.
Favorite person you may have toured with that you really had a good time with, you enjoyed most?
Well, there's a lot. Billy Ray, obviously I said that earlier, was my first tour. Probably one of the nicest guys you could ever meet.
Yep.
I got to meet Keith and Vernon Gosden and George Jones and Merle Haggard, John Anderson, and all those guys. And I mean, that's why I wrote Honky Tonk Teachers, because I was the student. They were the teachers. They taught me.
Yeah.
Do you know that you're going viral on TikTok right now?
You know, the younger generation, I didn't even know they knew who I was, you know, so.
They know you, buddy.
It's pretty cool, though.
Yeah. You put a stamp on this world. We are live from the Nashville Palace where the stars drop in. We talk about music, we talk about hunting, fishing, whatever we've got going on. Nashville Palace ties to just about every genre you could think of. Welcome back for another episode of the Nashville Palace podcast where the stars drop in. And today we have the one and the only Mr. Ken Mellons with us. Howdy, Mr. Ken.
Hello, Bobby. Good to see you, my man.
Yes, sir. Good to see you. Do you know that you're going viral on TikTok right now? Did you know that?
My wife, Christy Joe, tells me all this stuff about the viral thing and the numbers. I didn't know a whole lot about it, but you know, the younger generation, I didn't even know they knew who I was, you know, so.
They know you, buddy.
It's pretty cool, though.
Yeah.
You know,
we did a show on this world.
Yeah, we did a show down in Ville Platte, Louisiana last summer, and sold out show, and just incredible crowd, how rowdy and everything they were. And obviously, you know, Jukebox Junkie, you know, they know that, but they were singing, you know, every line to every other song, like I Can Bring Her Back and Learning to Live Without You in 7 Lonely Days, and it's just mind-boggling.
Did you know at that show when you know, as an artist, when you walk out on a stage, I'm sure you know, all right, this one is going to take some work to get these boys going, or when you walked out, did you, something's a little different here. They're ahead of me today.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of shows that we did back in the 90s where, well, I'll give you a prime example. There was a show that me and Mark Chestnut did together, and I'll never forget, it was in Illinois. And no matter what we did, that crowd was just, you know, it was crickets after every song. Oh. And you're just really thinking, man, you know, what's the deal? And then after the show, we sold every piece of merch that we brought. They just were like a very reserved kind of crowd. Mm-hmm. So you really, you know, feel like, are you on it tonight or are you not?
Y'all weren't playing a Jehovah's Witness.
They were playing an Amish farm town in Illinois.
They never had seen electricity.
It was Amish farm town in Illinois. They probably had horses and buggies out in the parking lot.
He said, where do we plug our bus up? And they said, sir, we don't have electricity.
It was very bizarre. And then you know, you play for other crowds, and man, from the time you walk out on the stage, it's Katie bar the door, rowdy, and, you know, girls throwing their bras and panties up on stage and stuff like that. So, but yeah, that show in Ville Platte I was telling you about, as soon as we walked out, man, I mean, they were hollering and hooping. And again, the young kids that were, you know, 18, 19 years old, that's what was mind-boggling to me, and very impressive, you know, like I said. And yeah, I mean, it's cool to see that the younger generation loves traditional honky-tonk country music.
Boy, they do. My son's 17, and you know, when I was raised down here in Music Valley, having Johnny Russell and Porter Wagner and Bill Anderson and Jeannie C. Riley and Jeannie Seeley and Bill Walker and all that group that was around the Opry, it's what I knew. Boxcar Willie. And my son's 17 now, and, you know, these kids either listen to something that I absolutely hate, and it's not anything like country music, even Brocum, and it's way over weird stuff.
Right.
Or they seem to come back to almost what I cut my teeth on when I was in my 20s. And it's a good thing, for us to be able to put some music on and him say, man, I like that. And it's something of yours or something of that genre during the 90s. A question that I'm always intrigued about with artists, and we talk about shows here at the Palace, and when people play here, it's kind of like a division. That wall over there, the folks down here are engaged in the music, and the folks up there are the Nashville jibber jabbers.
Right.
They're just here to hang and talk and aren't quite as clued in. From an artist standpoint, do you enjoy the shows where they're listening and they're honed into what you're saying, or do you prefer the shows where everybody's just having a good time and just having a party?
Hands down, the people are there to be entertained and want to listen. I can't stand playing for a crowd that they're talking or whatever. It makes me
That's what
very
I would think.
frustrated.
Yeah, it's tough for an artist.
Yeah.
We've always talked about that. Anytime we played or sang, and everybody's either watching the TV or they're doing something else and they're not paying attention to you. One thing that was always rewarding was when they start dancing. When they start dancing, then you feel good because you're doing something right.
Yeah.
But
That's kind of a crossover between listening. At that point, you got them.
Oh, yeah.
If they're up dancing, you've gone to that special spot. I would think I can't play anything.
Well, from my perspective, when we were playing Texas a lot of the Texas and Oklahoma crowds, if we were playing honky tonks, they would dance. But in other places, they wouldn't dance. And what we started doing was we would set up either chairs and tables from the front of the stage back to a certain point, and then everything else was free to dance and everything.
So you had the buffer of the crowd and then the dance.
Right.
The opposite of this almost.
Again, it's about, for me, having that connection with the crowd that's there to be entertained, and for everybody else that wants to be there and dance, that's great, but I prefer them to be in the back.
It makes sense.
Definitely.
Makes sense.
So you're from Tennessee.
Born in Kingsport, Tennessee.
Kingsport.
And we moved to Hermitage, Tennessee, where I actually still live, in 1968 when I was 3 years old.
Oh, wow. You're
So,
local. That's
pretty much.
Yeah.
My dad moved to Nashville with, me and my oldest sister and my mom, and he took a job at the Tennessean, and that's what brought him to Nashville. And then my youngest sister was born here. My oldest sister, she was born in Knoxville, so we have a lot of East Tennessee roots, still have a lot of family up there. But that's why we came to Nashville, because my dad took
What did
that
he do
job
for
at
the
Tennessean.
Tennessean?
He worked in the mailing room.
Okay.
And then he retired from there, and he passed away in 2006.
So, when they always give us notes, and some people we really need notes for and some we don't. So I really didn't need notes with you. But I glanced at the top and it said Kingsport. I thought, damn, I thought you were from Old Hickory. I mean, you went to school.
Yeah.
Did you go to DuPont?
Went to DuPont.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
I thought, man, that whole area, I just thought you were born in Baptist Hospital in Nashville and grew up in Old Hickory.
No, born in Holston Valley Hospital in Kingsport, but raised here.
Yeah.
And I love Nashville, or the surrounding cities. Like I said, I grew up in Hermitage, went to school at Hermitage Elementary, then on to Donaldson Junior High, and then
you've watched it change
I have
a few times.
Dramatically, really. And the thing for me, though, somebody asked me this years ago, said, was it easier to get in the music business and make it as an artist that's basically from Nashville, or somebody that moves here? And my personal opinion is I thought it was easier for somebody to move here and get a record deal, because I was from here and it took me forever to get one.
Well, we just had Lori. We were talking with her the other day, and we don't know which way the episodes will come. So yours may come before hers or afterwards. But in our conversation, that was one of the things. And she said something I'd never heard. And, maybe y'all have heard it before. She goes, I was like wallpaper. And it took me a second. And I was like, what does she mean by that? And then she followed up, she goes, I was always here. I was just along the edge of the industry. And I thought that was, it kind of was a sad way to put it, but I understood what she meant, that she was here from a kid all the way through.
Right.
And that's just, oh, Lori, she plays all the time. And, and I can see that being a Nashville native, that it would be tough. There's not a lot of y'all.
Well, there's not. You know, when I graduated high school in 1983, I was working for a little grocery store in Hermitage called Newman's Food Town, and I was sacking groceries for them. And at night, I would, you know, go down and sit in at local honky tonks and stuff like that. And I auditioned for Opryland in a show called Country Music USA 5 years in a row before they finally hired me on that 5th year.
That was a big-ass show.
And it's crazy because I'd left the grocery store and I started selling shoes at Castner Knott at Rivergate Mall.
You're Nashville, boy.
And here I am selling shoes and seen in the paper where Opryland's holding auditions again. And I'm like, man, they've turned me down 4 years in a row. I'm going to give it one more shot. And I went out there and I just took my guitar and I sang a John Anderson song called Girl at the End of the Bar. And it was, I don't know, it was just something different because we were basically all on first name basis because they knew who I was. I'd auditioned so much. And they offered me a job, and that was in 1989, and it was right after Keith Whitley passed away in May of 1989. And after I went to Keith's visitation, I went over to Ernest Tubbs' record shop on Music Valley Drive over here, and Del Dotson, who I've written a bunch of songs with down through the years, including I Can Bring Her Back, was working at Ernest Tubbs' record shop. And I was just in there looking around that day, and me and him got to talking, and I told him, I said, yeah, man, I just got this job at Opryland in the Country Music USA show. And he said, well, I work out there too. So that's where that relationship developed. But through that show, I worked out there from 89 to 92. Through that show, Hal Durham and Bud Wendell had seen the show and invited me to be on the Opry. And when I was on the Opry, that's when I met Jerry Cupid, who was my record producer. At the time, I didn't know who he was. But we started working together, and we pitched, you know, my songs and me as an artist around town for 2 or 3 years, and nobody wanted me. Then all of a sudden, RCA caught wind of me, and Tabitha Dicus, who was the A&R over there at the time, she said, Ken, I want you to come in and meet with Josh Leo, who's the head of A&R, and sing some of these songs that you've been writing and everything. She said, I believe in you and I'd sign you today, but it's his call. And this was back before Joe Galante had come back to Nashville. So meet with Josh, sang him some stuff, including Junkie. Junkie was one of those that we had written during that time frame. And he said, I'm going to give you $1,000 to put a band together, and I want you to do a showcase for us. And if we like you live, then we're going to sign you. So we went down, put a band together.
No pressure there.
No pressure at all. Of course, at that point, I was, you know, primed and ready, you know. And so we get down there, we do the thing, and he says, man, I want to do a deal. Come to the, you know, office on Monday. So we get to the office, and he's like, we're going to sign you to a deal. He said, but there's a problem. And I said, what's the problem? He said, well, we're unsure about that last name Mellons. I think we might want to change it. And I said, Josh, I've been Ken Mellons since July the 10th, 1965, and I'm not changing for you or anybody else. If you want me, I ain't changing my name. The next day, Sony calls, and they hear about me. Doug Johnson was the head of A&R at that time, so he's producing the Gibson Miller Band in the studio, and he says, I want you to come down, sing me a few songs, and let me hear you. So I did. He said, Monday, be at the office. I want Roy Wunsch, the president, to meet you. We did. They offered me the deal, and I said, there's 2 stipulations and I'll do the deal with you instead of RCA. 1, I ain't changing my name, and 2, Jerry Cupid produces my records. And they agreed to do the deal, and then, as they say, the rest is history.
So when they were kicking around names, did they ever throw out a name?
No, he never did. But, he's a New York guy.
Yeah.
And, man, here I am, old Tennessee hillbilly. I'm thinking, man, I ain't changing my name.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
You
weren't going to be Ken Skinnerd or anything.
I don't know what they had in mind, but I wasn't changing it. But, yeah, that's a true story.
I'll be that dumb.
Man.
Yeah.
We were talking earlier, and the amount people just don't realize the influence of Opryland. Every show we do, Opryland is brought up, unless it was one of our buddies from like Honey Break that we're talking about duck hunting and turkey hunting. It didn't come up.
Even too, everybody can go back and relate to the Opryland thing, and it might be too that we're our guests have been people that are Nashville driven and Music Valley driven. So there's definitely the Opryland thing. But even before I moved here in 2000, I mean, I knew all about Opryland just by TNN and the Nashville Network, and watching it on Channel 51, and back home in Florida when I was a kid. And Opryland was a kind of a huge park, almost like Disneyland.
Yeah.
It
Just
was
everybody
Disneyland
knew
with
about,
a guitar.
Everybody knew
That's what
about
it was.
Yeah.
knew about Opryland. So on your first deal there, the first song they put out on you, was it Jukebox Junkie?
No, first single was a song that I wrote called Looking in the Same Direction.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't even know where it went in the charts. It might have been a top 40, but it didn't do very well. And that was in the spring of 94.
Mm-hmm.
And then in June of 94, they put out Jukebox Junkie. And I was out on tour with Billy Ray Cyrus during that time. And you could tell every show that we were doing, the momentum was picking up on the song. Radio was picking up on it. And we always ended our show with it anyway before it was, even a single.
Right.
And then once they put it out and it started heating up, I'll never forget, we were in Wisconsin. And earlier that day, we did a big fundraiser for St. Jude Children's Hospital, me and Billy Ray. And we're doing the show, and of course ended with Junkie, and Gary Hayes was playing lead guitar for me at the time, and he went into the dun 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 dun, and looked at Hoot Gibson because the crowd just erupted like just nothing I'd ever experienced. I said, Hoot, I believe we got us a hit.
Where did Jukebox Junkie come from?
Me and Jerry Cupid was sitting around the office one night, and we were writing. We'd been writing all day, and we went and grabbed a bite to eat over there. His office was over there on Rural Hill Road in Antioch, and this is when Antioch was pretty nice.
Yeah.
And there was a Logan's Roadhouse over there.
I know right where it was.
And we went over and ate us some supper and come back, and we were just throwing ideas around, and he had the guitar, and I was laid back on the couch, and he started, hollering out titles, and nothing really grabbed me, and then he was playing that riff, that dun 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 dun. I said, keep playing that, and I'm thinking, and he goes, what about Jukebox Junkie? And I said, that's it. And it just wrote itself.
Yeah.
Now, and the songs that you have written or co-written either, I've asked this several shows. It's always intriguing to me. Some people like hearing the riffs first and the music side of it, and then others like to write songs and they get the words and then add the music to it. Which way are you?
Both.
You do.
I've written songs where I've been driving down the road, and all of a sudden all these ideas, and I'm trying to write down what I got on lyrically, and then sometimes the melody comes.
Yeah.
But I like both. I enjoyed, doing both. Now, I've written with writers that strictly are just lyricists. Mm-hmm. I've never written with anybody that's just a musician that don't have any, input on lyrics. But I have written with several writers that are just strictly lyricists. They don't play instruments.
That's how the Tennessee Waltz was written, was on the back. They ripped the matches out of a matchbook box and wrote it going down the road. And so what's the best song in your opinion, whether it was a hit or not, the one you're most proud of, that you're like, oh, shit, I got to pull off the side of the road, or you're writing going down the road? Tell that story.
I can bring her back. Jukebox Junkie is, it's my biggest hit, and was a monster record. But if I had to pick just one song that I was a writer on that is my favorite or that special, it would be I Can Bring Her Back.
And did you write it? Did the idea come going down the road?
I'll tell you how we wrote that. So me and Dale Dotson was writing one morning. He lived over in these apartment complexes. I used to call it the crack houses because every time I'd pull in there, I always worried about, am I going to make it out of here alive? We were over there one morning writing at his apartment, and I'm sitting at the kitchen table, and there's a clock on the wall. And he's telling this story about this girl that he used to be in love with back in Berkeley Springs, West Virginia, where he's from. And if you don't know Dale, he's a very animated kind of guy. Talks with his hands a lot, He's very animated. So he's up and he's talking. He's telling all these stories. And he said her name was Karen. He said, I'm still in love with Karen, and I just can't get her off my mind. And she used to wear these high heel shoes, and her legs would be in those pumps, and she'd walk around. Those calves would just be so thick. And she would walk around, and I would just admire that. And I just wish that I could just relive all those memories every day. And I go, you can bring her back anytime you want to, but only in your mind.
Right.
And that's where it
came from.
Yeah.
Man.
That's cool.
That's what, Ken, that's what people love about our city is those stories. I feel like when I talk to people and they know I'm a homer, I'm from here, those things, and I love that kind of stuff. I mean, that's what makes Nashville is hearing the backstory.
Yeah.
Just where the ideas come from. That's cool.
Looking for the most fun you'll have all year? Join thousands of dancers from across the country for Nashville Dance Fest. 3 unforgettable days of live country music, partner dancing, line dancing, competitions, silent disco, and a community that'll feel like family. Whether you're a beginner or a champion, this is your weekend. Labor Day weekend, September 4th through 6th at the legendary Nashville Palace. Get your passes now at NashvilleDanceFest.com.
Introducing the first event of its kind, the Champions Tournament by World Bass Enterprises. The top 25 anglers from the Elite Series and BPT have a 3-day battle for a first-place prize of $1.25 million to crown a true world champion. Held in the heart of Nashville, Tennessee, this isn't your average tournament. This showdown features a massive trade show at the Gaylord Opryland, live concerts from some of the biggest names, and every special moment streamed live for the world to see. Welcome to the Champions Tournament.
Barrett, even when I was, hot in the 90s, I would do a lot of shows with like all the Grand Ole Opry stars. Mm-hmm. There was a guy named Ed Gregory that would book us on these shows down in Tampa, Florida.
I knew
State
Ed
Fair.
well. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Ed loved me for whatever reason, and he would always put me on these shows, and I would sit backstage and I would soak up every story that I could get out of all those guys because that's what I grew up with.
Right.
That's what me going to the Opry and all that stuff as a kid, and they paved the way. Mm-hmm. And some of them stories on how they got ideas to write songs or whether it was just funny stories. Mm-hmm. I mean, I would just sit back there like a kid just soaking it up, thought this was the greatest thing in the world. And I don't know if these guys today really grasp that,
I don't know. Some of our conversations lately, I'm not sure that the girls don't get it more than the guys. Some of these new girls that are coming out, man, they're rooted, and they have some give a shit about where it's from.
Right.
And time will tell whether it's a facade or if it's really where they're at. But, I think there's some guys, that get it. But some of these new young girls, man, they got grandma teaching them how to play the guitar on the front porch and learning in church. And
right.
I see it coming back to a degree, and it's like in the 26 years I've been here, it comes and it goes and it comes and it goes. And this time it's kind of come back a little bit better, with the Zach Tops and even Luke Combs has settled down to the softer kind of countryside. There's still some country left, it's still there. It's not exactly like it was, like we grew up knowing, or what we played
But
in
I
our
think
trucks
that's
at
why
our
they're
age.
going back, and guys like Ken and other folks are going viral.
Getting a resurgence of
It's got that
90s good
you know,
feel
to it.
Yeah.
storytelling,
Yeah.
not screaming at you and not rapping about something, but it's good. It makes you feel good.
Yeah.
Makes you feel, you can sit down and drink whiskey.
Well, and I think you're believable. Not that you weren't when you were younger, but when a young person hears a song from you now, it's not like somebody dreamed up driving on a gravel road.
Right.
And you just now, I mean, a lot of these guys now singing about gravel roads, hell, they ain't never been on a gravel road.
No, I don't know nothing about a
You know,
gravel road.
God bless them. I mean, I'm happy
Yeah.
that they're successful and
Yeah.
and that they're singing about a gravel road. But there ain't no doubt, if you went to DuPont, you've drank beer in fields and you've had flat tires, you've wrecked trucks, and you've certainly been down gravel roads. So I think when younger people see, you know, in my era, you know, with Alan Jackson, he was singing from his life, you know, and his
Yeah.
family and his mom and his daddy and growing up with his granddad. You know, when he sings about, you know, driving a boat, you know that's a memory.
Right.
That isn't some made up stuff on a couch on Music Row. That was real life.
It's
It
a
might
real-
have got polished on Music Row,
Yeah. Yeah.
but you're believable to the kids nowadays, you know. And that's a fine looking shirt, by the way, too.
Thank you,
good.
man.
That's
Thank
a
you.
good one right there.
Probably one of
Thank
my
you.
best Ken Mellons questions would be, I mean, you got to tour and be on the road in the years with some great artists, and so some of them kind of out there and wild. What's just some of your favorite stories of, or favorite person you may have toured with that you really had a good time with, you enjoyed most?
Well, there's a lot. Billy Ray, obviously, I said that earlier, was my first tour. Probably one of the nicest guys you could ever meet.
Yep.
I mean, he was very gracious to me and the band, and always, anytime he was flying on a private jet somewhere home, if he needed to be home, he'd always ask me if I wanted to go.
Yeah.
And I did a few times, and you know, but I never wanted to take, you know, advantage of that. But I did a few times. But you know, Daryl Singletary,
Yeah.
you know, loved, always been out on the road with him and doing shows because we shared the same love for the same kind of music and the same kind of artist.
Yeah.
You got to have a Daryl story.
You got a lot of Daryl stories.
You got to have one that's just, he was just such a character. I talk about Opryland and Daryl Singletary.
every time we get on here talking to somebody, we either talk about the Daryl Singletary tribute that we do every year, or we talk some stories about Daryl. He kind of lives here at the Palace with us sometimes, for sure.
Well, again, just a, you know, a singer, and that was what I grew up on, singers that I wanted to sound like those guys, you know, Gosden and Whitley and Jones and Haggard and Lefty Frizzell and all those guys. You know, Daryl was the same way. But yeah, Daryl, I got one funny story that there was an old boy in Kentucky that had booked me on this show that we did for him. And he said, you're friends with Daryl Singletary, ain't you? And I said, yeah. He said, what do you think I could get him down here? I said, I don't know. I mean, that'd be between you and him. And he goes, well, will you give me his number? And I said, no, I don't give out people's number, but if you give me your number, you know, I'll call Daryl and tell him. So I called Daryl one day, and I was telling him about this old boy, and he goes, well, what do you think he wants to give me to come do this show? I said, I don't know, man. I said, he might, you know, give you 5,000, maybe something like that. He says, I can't get out of my recliner for less than 10. I said, I hear you. I'm watching Andy Griffith and Gunsmoke right now. Yeah, but Daryl was a good one, man. I miss him a lot. Just a great singer, great guy.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate you too, always, you know, helping do the tribute and raise the money for the kids and Holly, and we have to do it, but it is it's one of those dates every year that I'm not ever going to be out of town for.
Yeah.
You know, he was a special friend, and when he died, you look at Holly and the kids at that point, and, you know, he was in that part of, you know, you guys were in that middle of the road where radio still made a little money, albums were making money, but they were fading in the CD world, and digital was right out there, and just kind of everything was wonky.
Right.
And I knew that he was in that financial island of in-between stuff.
Yeah.
And a lot of y'all were, and we thought, what's the least we can do? We've got the Palace. The least we can do is ask everybody to help out and try to raise some money. And through the auctions and guys like you and Daryl Worley and
all the great
Red
artists that we've
and
had,
all those folks that come every year to
Griggs
help.
and-
Andy Griggs. It's a fun night. It kind of feels like a throwback Nashville night. Everybody's just kind of hanging out and shaking hands, and it's not all back room and distance, and it seems like a reunion almost. I don't know if it feels that way to you, if it's a pain in the ass, but
No,
you know.
it does. You know, matter of fact, we just did a show back in February in Huntsville, Alabama. It was a 90s country music concert.
Maybe the biggest concert of artists outside of Woodstock.
Right.
I saw
I
that.
asked Kurt
and
Webster,
I didn't even
and I
know
was
anything
like-
about it. And I saw those videos when it was over, and I was like, God, I'd have gone to that.
Man, how many of y'all were on the bill?
Well, a lot. Maybe 30 acts.
Yeah,
it was a lot.
Yeah.
But I mean, again, and the reason I'm bringing that up is because they paid tribute to Daryl on the show, and which obviously they should have. But the crowd knew every song that every artist sung.
Yep.
And I mean, this place was, you couldn't have fit another person in there. And to go out there and see that and be a part of that was just a wonderful feeling.
Yeah.
But again, it just tells you that people want to hear, I mean, 90s country music, I think they want to hear that, but people want to hear good traditional honky-tonk country music. They just do.
David Adam Burns is a country artist driven by honest songwriting and real connection, blending modern country energy with classic storytelling. His music reflects the everyday experience that shapes people's lives, love, perseverance, and staying grounded as the world moves faster. Come to the Nashville Palace on Wednesday, August 19th for a free show in the Randy Travis Room. Doors open at 8 p.m.
There's a line out of a Randy Travis song that says something, and I'll screw it up. As long as there's a heartbreak, there'll always be a honky-tonk or something like that. And that's what I feel like about traditional country music. And even if it's not, you know, the word traditional, I don't know even what that means anymore. To me, it means soul and words you can understand and songs you can relate to. If you can relate to it, to me, that means traditional.
Yeah.
Doesn't necessarily mean it has to be Ernest Tubb, you know, or Webb Pierce, you know, to be traditional.
I think, again, when I love a lot of that stuff, I love that, but it evolved, you know, over the years and got a little bit, you know, different than what they were doing. Even like the stuff that Hank Sr. did and everything, you know, I mean, it evolved into Lefty, then to Jones and, you know, and all that. It just, and now, I mean, when you go back and look at some of the 90s stuff compared to Ernest Tubb or Webb Pierce, I mean, it was just
dramatically different.
very much.
Yeah.
Music's a therapy to a degree. I've always looked at it that way. You know, some people go to the psychologist. Sometimes you can just turn on the radio and, you know, it'll bring people out of the cracks of, you know, just depression or down. And a lot of people go, oh, them old country songs, they make me depressed. No, they don't. They kind of let me know that somebody else was depressed like I was too. And it makes you feel better. It makes you feel good.
You're not alone.
Yeah, not alone.
When your dad worked at the Tennessean, did your mom, was she your music influence? Who said, Ken, you know, here's a guitar?
Well, my mom and dad both were just huge bluegrass fans and traditional country music fans. And my first introduction to any kind of music was bluegrass. They would take me to all these bluegrass festivals. And my mom, she's from the Appalachians of Virginia, where Ralph Stanley's from, up in Clinchco.
Okay.
And so she's from there. And then she met my dad in Kingsport.
She's as bluegrass as bluegrass can get, buddy.
That's where it started. So
Yeah.
Dad was a huge Lester Flatt fan, and they met in Kingsport because my aunt was living there going to beauty school. My mom was babysitting her nephew, and somehow her and my dad met at one of the dairy dips or something like that, and started dating and got married. So two people that had a passion for bluegrass and country music gets married, and they have me, the only boy in between two sisters. But they would take me to bluegrass festivals. First time I ever heard Keith Whitley sing was in the 70s, and him and Ricky Skaggs was playing with Ralph Stanley. It was at a bluegrass festival up in Virginia there. And I fell in love with his singing, and, and then after that, started following his career with J.D. Crowe in the New South when he was cutting all of that stuff with J.D., and then his solo stuff, But my mom and dad both were influenced because my dad, I think, always wanted to be a singer, but he was providing for his family, so he never pursued that. But a lot of his friends would tell me they would enter him in these talent shows, and he'd win, they'd take the money and go buy moonshine. And so that's kind of was one of the funny things, about my dad, because I took him out on the road with me quite a bit just to want to make him a part of that,
right,
because I knew he loved that. And it didn't matter where we would go. We'd get on the elevator at Summit Hospital. I'd go with him for a doctor's appointment. We'd get on the elevator, and 4 or 5 strangers would get on, and we're just standing there, and he'd be like, "You ever heard of Jukebox Junkie? That's my son, Ken Mellons, right here." So awesome. Just both my mom and dad both were probably, I guess, the reason that I fell in love with music and started singing.
Where's the first place you played live?
Well, first live show I ever did, I was 6 years old, Hermitage Hullabaloo talent show. I sung "You Got a Brand New Pair of Roller Skates and I Got a Brand New Key."
Oh, my gosh.
Acapella.
Where was that?
On top of that, yes, and that ain't traditional honky-tonk country either.
Hermitage what?
It was kind of Hermitage Elementary, where I went to elementary school.
All right.
But they had a talent show called the Hermitage Hullabaloo.
Hullabaloo.
And I got a picture somebody sent me, and I'm sitting up there, with my 3-piece suit and tie on, and that's what I did. So that was the first time that I ever sang live. And my mom and dad would take me down to watch Porter tape his TV shows at WSM on Nob Hill there. Mm-hmm. And I would sit in the crowd, and matter of fact, we've got a bunch of DVDs I guess we bought somewhere of the old shows, and then when they shoot the crowd scenes, you see me and my mom and dad and my sisters sitting there quite a bit in those shots. And I would sit there and be mesmerized when Porter would walk through with those rhinestone suits on, those red shiny boots. I just thought that was the greatest thing in the world.
Like a pimp.
Yeah, man. I was like,
talking.
I want to look like that.
We were talking to Becky Henson the other day about Porter, and I said he was like a pimp up in there with all them rhinestones.
Who wouldn't? Fancy jackets and hanging out with Dolly.
I
That's
want a
pretty
jacket
good
like
life.
that. For some of the shows I get to host,
could be
They
worse
didn't call him
things
the
to do.
wagon master for nothing.
I always said that these shows I get to host, I said I want me one of them jackets. It would cost a fortune to get one made like that, but I want one of them Porter jackets.
Man, those are some good jackets.
When you pop open the side and it goes howdy, or something.
Yeah.
Hello, or whatever you have in there.
Yeah.
So you knew the Hermitage, whatever the
Hermitage
hell
Hullabaloo talent show.
Yeah, there you go. Time goes on. When did you start getting into honky tonks? And
man, not long after that. And when I got into junior high, I was doing John Anderson stuff, probably before even most of my friends even knew who John Anderson was. And then Bo Cephas, Hank Jr. was a huge influence on me. And Jerry Lee Lewis, a lot of that early country stuff he did after he was doing the rockabilly stuff. I mean, Jerry cut some killer country.
Man,
records.
one of his songs, Middle Age Crazy, maybe.
Oh yeah,
it's one of my top 3 songs.
Yeah,
I love that song.
Absolutely, man.
Man, I used to get. I'm just drawing.
Kevin Denny.
Kevin Denny would do with Organic Country at Scoreboard, and I was like, hey, play it. Mm-hmm. And he'd knock it out of the park. What a great song.
What another great singer and songwriter.
Yeah,
Kevin Denny, man.
Yeah.
What a gem he is. We've written some good stuff together down through the years. And think the world of him too. But yeah, Jerry Lee and all that stuff, he cut like a bunch of Hank Sr. stuff, but did it his style, like You Win Again. And I mean, son,
Yes.
you know, I
What
mean,
was the name of that first album? The Killer Goes Country, I think it was.
it might have been, yeah.
The Killer
and,
Goes
and I believe
Country.
that had
He was
that
so
album.
talented. People just think of Great Balls of Fire, you know, and the movie just kind of really just kind of pigeonholed him into catching a piano on fire and being kind of crazy when Dennis Quaid did that movie.
Yeah.
And there's so much depth to him, man. What a talented man he was.
Man, you know, all that stuff he did, but when you put on that stuff and some of that obscured stuff, you know, like my youngest son Cash is really into that, and he come to me the other day and he's like, "Have you ever heard this song by Jerry Lee Lewis called What's Made Milwaukee Famous Has Made a Loser Out of Me?" I said, "Of course I have.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?"
Yeah, duh.
But yeah, man. The Killer was...
I'm glad you brought Cash up because one of the several times that you've played here at the Palace, you had him up there with you.
He's here today, I think.
Is he?
Yeah, I think him and Christy Joe's around here somewhere.
So
Back over there.
you passing the baton to him a little bit? You think that's where, you know, as a dad myself, I don't think most dads ever want to push a kid into an area, but if they want to go that way, it's fun to help them.
Well, Barrett, me and Christy Joe both have never pushed music on him, but it just seems like that's just what he wants to do. And the older he gets, the more passion he has. You know, he's got the band together with Case and Hammonds and Ryman Frizzell called the Honky Tonk Daycare Band. You know, they're doing that thing.
Nice.
But, you know, at 14 now, the daycare band, they might have to change their name. You know, they don't need
Yeah.
daycare anymore. But
Yeah.
they've been doing that for about 4 years or so. But he wants to do his thing. He wants to write and sing, and he can play 4 or 5 different instruments, and just very proud of him. He can sing harmony, has a great ear, but when I sit down with him and he pulls out some of that stuff that I like, because he likes stuff that I'm not a big fan of. Mm-hmm. Like, he's a gigantic Elvis fan, and I never really was a big Elvis fan. I respected Elvis and what he did, but I can't sit here and say that Elvis is as good as Vern Gosdin or Keith Whitley or George Jones or Merle Haggard.
Right.
But he loves that kind of stuff. But just to hear him sing and try to do those vocal licks like I tried to learn from all my heroes, and hear him do that stuff, it puts a smile on your face. You know?
Do y'all
I mean, it's
write
pretty
any
cool.
together?
We're working on one right now. Yeah, I actually started called Cold Beer, Hot Lips, and Country Music. But I told him the other day, I said, I think we need to change it to Cold Beer, Neon Lights, and Country Music. So he started coming to me with all these different lines, and I'm like, yeah, man, you're coming along quite nicely.
Yeah. he's a son of a bluegrass man.
That's right.
Right there.
That is awesome to see him grow up. I know there's times where we played music with Organic Country over at Scoreboard, and the kids would come in and they were little bitty, man.
Oh,
man.
yeah. Yeah.
And they would have a guitar. They would, stand up on the corner of the stage and stuff. It was always cool.
Yeah.
Now, me and Barrett talk about it all the time. Now we're starting to feel old, man, because folks have grown up and they've gotten older, and we're the old guys sitting at the end of the bar now. We're not the young guys anymore. We're the Uncle Barretts and Uncle Bobs.
Yeah. You bring up Vern, and man, for years and years, he was a staple at the original Palace location.
Yeah.
And, I can remember, hell, I was in my late 20s, and Vern would get up and sing just about, every week. At some point, he'd jump up. And at the time when you're going through that, or I'd go down to the bar that was down here that blew up.
Long Branch.
Yeah, I was wanting to say Broken Spoke.
Yeah.
And I knew that was over on by Gabe's. And Merle would be down there shooting pool in the back in the afternoons. And I would take a break from Scoreboard. I'd open in the mornings, work through lunch, and then go down there and just kind of hang out, drink beer, and then come back and help bartend and do what I needed to do. and Merle would be down there. And at that time in my life, I certainly appreciated Merle's music.
Right.
But I didn't appreciate the presence I was in at the time shooting pool with Merle Haggard.
Yeah.
You know, it was just, man, I'm shooting pool today, and we got to shoot pool a lot.
Yeah.
And it wasn't Merle and Haggard shooting pool. It was just a buddy that was shooting pool.
Right.
And then sitting with Vern at the Palace, you know, we were blessed to grow up in this town.
Yeah.
And as those people pass through, like Bobby's saying, you feel like the old guy at the end of the bar. Hell, I started when I was young. I was 22 when we opened Scoreboard.
Yeah.
So I've seen so many people come through that, you know, it's like, hell, I don't feel like I ought to be old, but I guess we are at this point. You
Past
know,
8 years, I don't know where it went, man. I look now and I see things, and especially the old Facebook or social media will pop up something that you posted years ago, and you go, oh my God, it's been 9-10 years ago.
Yeah.
And it feels like yesterday in your brain, but then you start thinking back, and you're like, yeah, I guess that was 9 or 10 years ago. You know, we started opening bars downtown in 2010.
Yeah. 16 and a half
So it
years
was-
ago.
Yeah.
Time flies, man.
Do you feel, my son is 17, and he is eat up with fishing more than any one person I've ever been around in my life. I mean, he's on the circuit. He's fishing at Dale Hollow right now.
Yeah.
We get through, I'll drive up there tonight. We get a tournament this weekend. And it, you know, it energizes me to want to fish more and enjoy the outdoors, because I've got somebody that's got energy and wants to go do it. And it doesn't feel like, we're dragging a couple old guys to go do it.
Yeah.
Do you feel that energy out of Cash now that he's discovering music? Do you feel that energy? Does it give you like a rebirth almost to a certain extent?
It does, because I feel like if we take off again, which, you know, all indications look like we're going to be doing that again, you know, I want him to be out there with me playing, you know, whatever instrument, which probably would be rhythm guitar, and singing harmony with me, because I think it will help hone his craft, and it'll give him an opportunity to see the things that he needs to work on and get better at, and see what all it entails. Because one thing that I've told him that it took me a long time to learn in the music business, the business comes before the music.
Yeah.
Not necessarily that I like it that way. It's just that's the way it is.
That's going to be like him going to college for free.
Right.
It really is.
Yeah.
You know, Bobby and I spent an afternoon one day a couple years ago with Larry Gatlin, and you're the first person I've ever heard say what you just said. That day talking with Larry, he said, you know, it took me a long time to figure out the word show business should be a hyphen in it. Mm-hmm. And you got the show and you got the business.
Right.
And for him to be able to learn on the road and see it, you know, certainly it'll be different. You know, I would imagine back when you were on the road with Billy Ray and Daryl and all those folks, the radio circuit back then, to have to go and get in a van,
man,
and go and talk about that a little, because a lot of people don't know that even exists. If you hadn't grown up in this town,
right,
or been an artist, versus now, you still got to do that radio, but not.
It's
like
not
you
like
did.
it was.
Yeah.
Even you think about, like, if you ever watch the movie Coal Miner's Daughter, and you see Loretta and Mooney climb in the car and go visit radio stations, they were doing it back then. But in the 90s, I mean, I don't know how many radio tours I've done, but a lot.
Yeah.
And that's what we called them, radio tours. And I mean, you just go visit station after station after station, and you know, a lot of them will look you in the eye and say, man, we'll play your record, or we'll add it, or whatever, and then they'll, you know, throw it in the trash can when you leave. But I mean, there was even stations that didn't even get on Jukebox Junkie, as big of a record as it was. There was 2 or 3 stations, I think, said, you know, man, we're just not going to add it. But then I Can Bring Her Back came out, and they were first ones on board. So you just don't, you know, never know. But yeah, the radio tour, basically what it consists of is you go visit all these radio stations, meet with the music director, program director. And nowadays, I don't know what it's like, because it's been a while since, you know, I've had a record out at radio. But back then, a lot of them, especially the like Cumulus and people like that, they would have these consultants. And that's what used to bother me, is like a consultant that lived in, Mesa, Arizona, is consulting a station in Columbia, South Carolina, and they're telling these people what they need to be playing. And how does this guy know what his market wants to hear? Again, it's about he's getting paid to do a job for whatever, but he don't have no clue. It's almost like back when, I first started making records, I didn't realize how the music business really worked, but it's about, publishing and songwriting, and has anybody got a slice of the pie and that kind of thing. And people that are sitting on the porch in Knoxville, Tennessee, grandma and grandpa or whatever, they either like the song or they don't. They could care less who wrote it, who produced it, and who played on it. But a lot of these people, they're like, well, if I could get a third of that publishing, or if I could get a third writer on that, we might be able to do something with that, and I don't know. I always looked at it different, I guess, because, I don't know, but I guess, again, it's business.
It's a tough deal. It's
Goes
a tough
back to business.
And the thing is, each single artist no one's exactly the same. Those deals aren't exactly the same. There's still sharks on the back end of every one of their deals, but they're not all the same. Certain guys get this amount and get that and get this, and it's a dog-eat-dog world. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
Nashville's a lot of big cities, a lot of big buildings, but just a few people in this town that can actually do it for you. I've said that before, and there's 10 million people that'll tell you they can do it for you, but there ain't but about 5 of them that's gonna put you where you need to be.
You're right, Bobby. And one of the things somebody asked me the other night about, my career in the music business and different questions they were asking me, I said, I'll be 61 years old in July, and this is the way that I view life. Life is about relationships. It's about having a relationship with Jesus Christ, and it's about having a relationship with your mom and dad and your siblings and your wife and your kids and your friends. And that's what it's about. It's about relationships. And when you develop relationships with people, it's like getting a job. If you know somebody that works inside a job that you might not be as qualified as some other old boy, but you got a relationship with somebody, you're probably going to get that job. And it's kind of the same thing. I mean, that's what life is. It's about relationships.
Just be good to people, be nice to people, always treat people as you want to be treated. I think
Pretty simple.
Yeah.
At the end of the
like
day,
you said,
boil it down.
That's a part of, the man upstairs and karma too. What goes around comes around. You do unto others as they do unto you, and you're going to be fine.
Yeah. Just be good to people, man. And one of the things I tell both my boys, I got a 25-year-old son too, and I tell him, my oldest boy, his name's Cade, and I always tell him and Cade Cash both, always do the right thing no matter what.
Yeah.
And not that that's the greatest philosophy
you'll sleep
in
better,
the world,
you'll do better,
but just always do the right
Pretty
thing.
simple.
And it may feel like the wrong thing at the time, but it'll come back around to you. It will come back around to you in a positive way. It will.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Ken, right now things are kind of bubbling back up, and there's some attention, and we talked about that earlier. Are you writing new music now? Do you see a new album coming from you in the future? What? It's interesting. You just said 61. I would have not believed you were 61 to begin with. So that, number one, that kind of was like, wow. You're going to have to approach this different than at any point in your life prior to this. What do you see?
Well, Barrett, you're right. It's a totally different ball game now than it was in the 90s. But as we said here today, I've been offered a record deal with a record company, and we're just in the midst of working everything out, and we'll just kind of see how everything goes with that. But again, I said the same thing to them is, when they approached me, which was pretty cool, but I just said, why would y'all want to sign a 61-year-old honky-tonk hillbilly singer?
Yeah.
They said, Ken, you can still sing.
Yeah.
You can still write songs, and we think that you're very valuable to us. So it's
that's got to make you just sit back, and I got to follow up to this one as well. that's got to give you a sense of worth isn't the right word. I don't know the right word I'm looking for, but damn, you got to be proud of yourself, to say, man, my talent, you've taken care of yourself. You got a fancy shirt and you got folks. There's not a lot of 61-year-olds anybody's asking to do that.
You still have a sense of value, man.
Yeah, you've got to just.
Your heart's
that
still
had
in
to
it,
make
too.
you just go, hell yeah.
Barrett, it is a good feeling. My career has been like a roller coaster ride, the Wabash Cannonball at Opryland. Just a wild ride. But to be where I'm at my age, and for somebody to feel like that, I can bring something to the table, it is a good feeling. And I'm very, very blessed and very thankful. God's really been good to me and blessed me in more ways than I'll ever deserve. But to have this opportunity, it is special. And I'm looking forward to getting back out there again. When you do sporadic shows here and there and you see that younger generation and even the older people, man, it's a feeling you just can't describe, really. It's just a wonderful feeling. And, the songwriting and the singing and the passion that I have for it. And, it just is, it's a great feeling. We're, this weekend we're going up to Pigeon Forge. I'm getting inducted into the International Country Music Association's Hall of Fame. And, again, I was like,
hell, that's a hell of a deal.
Well, I'm like, why?
Yeah.
But
Well,
somebody
you're awful humble. Yeah, you're
somebody
awful humble.
must, think so. But I'm thankful, and I'm thankful that my kids can see this stuff, and Christy Joe, because Christy Joe was just, about 15 years old, I guess, when I first started having a lot of success. So she's 46 now, and Cade and Cash weren't born, in the 90s when I was out there. So to see them be able to see, it's kind of like that thing they're doing now. Dad, what was you like in the 90s?
You're the epitome of that.
Well, this is what I was like.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's pretty cool, brother.
Man, again, being at the Palace and getting to visit with as many people as I have through my life, there's a lot of good guys and girls that come through the industry. And when you see somebody like you that's getting that spotlight coming back around, it's like, well, we always wonder why the spotlight ever go away, but everything ebb and flows. But man, you've been just a great guy from day one, and you feel like a neighborhood friend to everybody. And that's why when I started out, I said, man, I didn't know you weren't from Old Hickory. Everybody in this town knows you, and everyone speaks so highly of you, and everybody's in your corner. And we hope nothing but just tremendous success. And I think it's cool to be able to look back in time, and I think not that you didn't appreciate it then, but boy, I bet it's going to be a whole lot of different perspective now, and you'll be able to absorb it with your family and the boys around. And
yeah, I think you're right, Barrett. I think it's a different kind of appreciation this go around, and I appreciate what you said about me. I've always thought a lot of you and your family, and I'm thankful for y'all, what y'all have done for not only this area and Nashville, but for country music. And thanks, to both of y'all for having me.
You got to give a shout out to yourself on social media handles. How can they find out where you're going to be?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Where can we find you? You still got you still have a Ken Mellons website?
We have a website, kenmellons.net, and TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, and X. I guess it's X now.
Yeah, you got to talk on X.
And so we have them all the social medias. Just search Ken Mellons.
Ken Mellons. You're not hard to find. They're going to find you.
Maybe when that new music comes out, we could convince you to do your album release here at the Palace.
I would be honored to do that.
That'd be great.
Nothing would make us happier than
We need
to
a
help
good,
send
we
you
need
off
a good
on.
Ken Mellons show, man.
We need a little.
Rack that one up.
Yeah, that would be so much fun, and we would love to help host that, and especially if you come out with a vinyl, that'd just
Hey,
be.
man, I would love to do that.
that'd be-
let's do it.
When, those vinyl records, man, when I was
They're
a kid,
selling now,
I
man.
know,
Holy
man.
cow!
But, I used to go buy those albums and want to look on there and see who wrote the songs and played on the stuff. And, now.
That was all part of the storybook.
Yeah,
when
it
you got
was. Now when you just download a song,
Yeah,
you don't know
it's
nothing.
No, there's nothing to it. And you even mentioned earlier, hell, that's a country music song in itself. The day of Keith Whitley's funeral, you go to Ernest Tubb Record Shop.
Yeah.
I mean, if that isn't country music story there, I don't know what is.
I've told this story a lot about Keith. Keith was such a huge influence on me. And I'd auditioned for the show You Can Be a Star that was on the Nashville network.
Sure.
And they had turned me down. And I went out there just to watch it from the audience. And that day, Keith and Lori was a judge, along with Keith's record producer, Blake Mevis. And I'm just sitting there in the crowd, and this guy's walking around during a commercial break, wanting to know if anybody wanted to get up and tell jokes. And I said, man, I don't know any jokes, but I'll render one for you if you'll let me. And I got up and started singing Country Music Singers, and I started singing Family Tradition. When I finished, Keith was sitting over at the table where the judges were sitting, and he was motioning for me to come over. And the whole time I'm walking down there from where I was sitting, I'm thinking, this is Keith Whitley.
Yeah, this is
one
happening.
of my big heroes in music. And I get down there, and he said, Ken, you're one of the greatest singers I've ever heard in my life. Don't ever give up. One day you're going to be a star. And I looked down on the ground, Barrett. There was a popcorn box, and I picked it up, and I ripped it in half. And I said, would you sign me an autograph? He put on there to Ken, keep singing, Keith Whitley. And I mean, this is true story. After Keith passed away, I used to go to his gravesite and talk to him. And I know people might think that's weird or whatever. But come to find out later, after I got to be around his family, his brother Dwight and his mom Faye, and some of his family members would tell me he used to go to Lefty's gravesite and talk to Lefty.
Huh.
And the reason I used to go talk to Keith is because, well, multiple reasons, but the main reason was I think that day that he said that to me, it gave me the encouragement to keep going forward after I'd been turned down by so many different people. And I really owe a lot to him, not only from the musical side of things that I've learned and try to steal vocal licks and stuff from, but the encouragement of getting to meet him. And I was very fortunate. I got to meet all my honky-tonk heroes other than Lefty, because Lefty had passed on. But I got to meet Keith and Vern Gosden and George Jones and Merle Haggard, John Anderson, and all those guys. And I mean, that's why I wrote Honky Tonk Teachers, because I was the student. They were the teachers. They taught me.
Yeah.
And I did a podcast with a guy named Dylan Weldon here about a month ago, and Dylan asked me, he said, you're probably one of the best singers I've ever heard. And he said, how does that make you feel? And I said, well, being humble because I am, I said, the ultimate thing for me would be if a bunch of old boys was sitting in a bar and they were drinking beers and talking about country music singers, and they were talking about all the greats, the guys that influenced me and that, were such a big impact and influence on me. If they mentioned my name along with their name, that to me would be the ultimate.
That's cool. That's definitely where it's at.
Yeah.
Man, thank you for being here with us, Ken. You're an awesome man. You're truly a genuine human being. And thanks for always being so kind to us. Anytime we call you for something, you always jump right to it. Thank you.
I appreciate y'all, and I wish
Anything
y'all
we
all
can
the
do
best.
for you,
Always
man.
good to see you, man.
Yes, sir. Anything we can do for you, please let us know. That's the wrap up there for the Nashville Palace where the stars drop in. Mr. Ken Mellons, thank y'all for being with us today.
If he's on the road in your town, you better go see the Jukebox Junkie.